That's
You
great.
forgot the last part there.
That's okay. A lot of things in that were really interesting. Like one right there at the end, when you played the chorus the second time, you of course did it from the other G, but it didn't phase you, and it doesn't make any difference. In other words, like so it's like you had a good enough idea of what had to happen, even though you were in what we kind of, slightly unfamiliar, or I'd recommend doing it the other way, only really because at the beginning of that chorus, I like the sound of the full G chord better than the G5 than with the D up on the top.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about the difference.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
yeah, this is a fuller sound by having that open B string
Yes.
in
Yeah.
there. But there's so many times that other one is absolutely what you need to do, and this song's an example. I mean, but there, as is, we probably never talked about "Wish You Were Here," the Pink Floyd song, did we?
Um, no, I mean, I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but
Yeah.
it revolves. I don't know if we're ready to branch into Pink Floyd, but it's really easy. But I'll just give you a quick little hint of it. But if you want to mess with it sometime, we can. The whole thing revolves around keeping these two notes down. Matter of fact, this would be a good little side project for you to try to
Yeah.
figure this out by ear, maybe. But I'll give you a couple hints. The big hint is these two fingers stay here the whole time,
Okay.
and then you pick out some melody notes. Matter of fact, since I just started recording this as you were finishing up your song, um, you could probably go back and just watch me and listen to me do that and figure it out. I mean, between seeing it and listening to it,
Yeah.
you might be able to put it all together. So if you want to put that on like a side burner and think about it, that might
Yeah.
be kind of fun too.
No, I will for exactly the same reason that I did the other one that way. Yeah. So that's because I mean that song I can can completely um, envision the whole time. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
the, where it's going and what's going to happen and all that. And then particularly when David Gilmour when the you know I can sort of see that whole thing. There's a I'm sure you of course you have the live thing where he's on stage with the guy playing the 12 string who's picking out that
right,
background. He plays the other thing. And then there's the cello. The girl
yeah,
plays the cello. And it's really lovely.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 There's
Great. I will do that. That's this week's side burner project.
Okay, good. One last thing about the about "Wish You Were Here." On the original studio album, then of course what happens is a lead comes in, right? We hear this. Anyway, um, and there's something he does on the studio version. It's the next phrase. That bend is on the third string, and he bends the heck out of it in the original version because he's got a plain third string. He's got one, he's changed the string on that guitar so that he can bend it really hard. It's not a wound third string. It's just a plain steel one like the first two, which lets you bend it a lot more, right? But and you could hear that when I did this, it wasn't I didn't get it high enough. You can't get a real G string up to there. But and so when he plays it live, he never has a guitar. It's not worth having a guitar with that weird string on it and traveling with it just to play the two notes in that song that need it. So he has to modify it a little bit. So if you watch that again carefully, notice what he does like as he's playing that lead, because what he kind of does is something like this. It's like I did a quick slide up a half step. And you can hear that sounds a little closer to what happened, but it's not what happened. But it's the closest you can fake it with a regular string,
Okay. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
but it's yeah. So okay, okay, yeah. Oh well, that'll be
There's one more note. Bum ba da da da. There it is.
yeah.
And then there's some strumming, and then there's another little. So it's got like four two-part phrases, questions and answers. You know, da 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 dum, strum strum strum, da da dum, strum 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 strum. You know,
Okay, okay, yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that's enough hints. You're,
okay.
you'll have that figured out in a half an hour, I bet. You know,
Yeah.
maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, that's fun. That's fun just to sit down and walk through it.
Yeah.
I started. I happened to look at your new lessons of the week, which were the Tim Harden
Oh,
song,
reason to believe. Yeah.
"A Reason to Believe," and the Linda Ronstadt.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
those, I mean, those are, you know, again, those resonate in the memory bank very much.
Sure.
So especially with the Tim Harden song for a couple of different versions of it, which are covered in there.
Yeah.
So I just literally started looking at those things,
Okay.
and there were a couple things. Well, it doesn't matter anymore, which I think was capoed to the fifth and all.
Yeah.
And,
That's where hers was. Yeah.
yeah.
And you know,
Um,
I played this for one of my students the other day. Like as I was working on it, he came in, and I was just like writing out a little bit of it, but I was doing it without the capo. And he walked in and says, "That's not the right pitch." I said, "Yeah, you're right." He goes, "That's got to be capoed, right?" I said, "Yeah." And you know, this is Fred. I don't think you've ever met Fred, but I used to have some fly on the wall lessons with him. We just haven't done it in a long time, and he's so it was interesting that jumped right out at him when he heard me playing it open. It's like, man, what's wrong with that? You know, it's not how it goes, you know, or whatever. So he was really in tune with the pitch of
oh,
things. Matter of fact, and one time I played this. Right, record of Edmund Fitzgerald, and he said the same thing. He says that's not the right pitch. I think he has perfect pitch actually, because I mean, you know, without knowing it or knowing anything about it, but it's like he's got these songs ingrained in his head, and when Gordon Lightfoot did that, he was capoed at the second fret, so it really was here, you know,
yeah.
and it takes kind of sensitive ears to hear that out of the blue with like no other reference point. You know, like right there when you heard it at the second, you could say, "Oh yeah, that does sound better," right? But when you heard it open, it's probably didn't jump out at you that that's not the right pitch. You know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So it's funny. I think I
Yeah.
really suspect he has perfect pitch, which means you can, you know, kind of identify stuff. You virtually could sing a note, a C. You know like what C is in your head, the same way you or I would know what red is. You know.
Yeah. Huh.
It's a really interesting. I don't know what you call it, whether a skill, you know, an instinct. I mean, instinct is a weird thing when you talk about humans, but it's clearly something that some people have, and if you don't have it, you can't learn it. You
Uh-huh.
know, I mean, they've done so many studies that, and you know, they'll go through different composers over the years and say, you know, because there were famous composers like Stravinsky who did not have it. And if anybody could have developed it, you'd think it'd be people like that, you know.
Yeah.
And and then there are other ones that they're sure did have it. He might have been one of their, you know, Beethoven, Bach, people like that. But
Right, right.
it's not necessarily a huge advantage in many things in music. Matter of fact, it's a little disadvantage sometimes, because if something is, well, anyway, it's an interesting, you know, part
Yeah.
of the human makeup that maybe 1% of the population has it or something, you know.
So Fred with perfect pitch then could tune his own guitar with just
You know,
any.
he could, yeah, if we worked on it like that, yeah, he probably could.
You say, yeah, that's a D. Yeah, that's what that string's supposed to sound like.
Yeah, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
I have, and what musicians can develop if they work on it is more what's called relative pitch. You know, so like if if you play a note on your guitar, now sometimes I'll hear the same thing. Sometimes like you could play your E string and I'll say, oh man, that's flat without even hearing any other string on there. And it might just be because I even had music on and somewhere else, and so I had notes in my head and I could hear that note you played is not in tune because with what's still floating around in the ether here. And it could just be a couple of cents off or something. But more important than that is developing this thing called relative pitch, which is being able to recognize a note with some reference point. So like if and frankly, when I put new strings on my guitar and then just try to tune them up to where I think without like any other reference. I end up getting incredibly close, and and I think it's because I can find the note A pretty well because I know it's about where I talk. Bum, so I was a little flat right there because it's early in the morning. But it's like so that's sort of a note that resonates in my head, but and then so I can usually find things kind of from there. But anyway,
But in the relative nature of things, once you have a note that you are fairly comfortable, yeah, that's the right note, then you would be able to go through the entire scale,
yeah,
relatively speaking. So, I mean, I mean, even now with my inexperienced ear, I could go through the scale and know if I hit the wrong note. Oh
sure,
yeah, that doesn't fit into that
yeah,
scale. That's
yeah.
yeah. That's not the half step it was supposed to be, or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Something that I actually taught for a couple of semesters. I taught an ear training lab at Foothill Junior College. It's like the teacher of the it was like a lab that went with a big theory class, right? And the
Yeah.
teacher knew me and just hired me to teach his lab on like Friday mornings or something like that. And the stuff you work on in classes like that is um, the ear training kind of sideline of it is there's about three or four things. One is you want to be able to recognize chord progressions and how like being able to hear, oh, that was a 1 4 5 or that was a 1 2 3 or whatever. So recognize hearing harmonic progressions is some of it. And then writing out singing, like sight singing a melody, looking at notes on a page and being able to sing it with some reference point. It's like they'll say, okay, you can see this starts on do, whatever key it's in, it starts on the tonic, right? And then they'd play a note for you like this A, and then you might sing the whole scale, da 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 da, but you have to start practicing singing intervals like 1 3 5, getting used to hearing those, and there's all kinds of songs that that start off with a lot of unusual intervals, and so you start making connections like singing an octave, bum bum, somewhere over the rainbow. So you learn that, oh, over the rainbow, that's an octave. So if I hear something that sounds like those first two notes in Over the Rainbow, bum, bum,
Uh-huh.
you learn that's what an octave sounds like. So there's a lot of interesting, anyway, it was a blast. That was about 35 years ago, probably when I was doing that. But,
35 years ago. Wow.
well, but it's still something I use every day, I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
something I do every day when I'm figuring out songs or stuff like that, because I have a pretty well developed sense of ear training because of using it my whole life, since college.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's hear what's happening here. How far'd you get?
Well, let's see. It doesn't matter anymore. So the baseline in this, as we go through these sequences, is all played with the thumb.
Yes. And a lot of those bass notes are then on the third string.
Right. Okay. It's a
Yeah. Let's just try the bass part first. Don't even worry about any fingers because what you need to hear here, oh good, there's my capo, is so just play the four bass notes in that measure, but when you add the one at the second fret,
yeah.
don't let go of it. It has to keep ringing when you go to the open string above it. Ah. Okay, so don't take this off. Matter of fact, you're going to leave it there because you're going to play another note higher than it in the next measure. You got to play your little finger has to
Right.
get up to the F sharp. Right.
Right. Okay.
No, and then right now that's when you need the no, so keep going. Go into the second
Oh,
measure.
one step, go across. Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
Hang on to it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the eight bass notes. It's really just a little two measure phrase, right? That has that moving bass and
Yeah.
really only one note thrown in there, one finger thrown in at the end of the first measure, right? Oh wait, is it there? I'll have to look at it. Well, oh, you have the music right there. I did a couple of things in that music that are. I don't know if you saw the video of Linda playing this. Like I put it in the forum announcement. There's a video of Linda Ronstadt playing this and singing it. I didn't even know she played guitar. And she does this finger picking, but in the live one, she's at the seventh fret. So if you see that video of her playing it, singing it, she's a whole step higher. But she does a very basic pattern. She only uses one finger along with all those bass notes, and that finger always plays just the second string. Yeah, and it just comes in between. I think look with the music you have. Does that finger come in after the third bass note or the fourth?
Fourth.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not until the and of four, and in the next measure is it? Yeah. Oh, and then in the next measure there's a finger on the and of four too, but it's a different string, right? It's the third string.
Yes, but there's also a finger on the end of two in the
Oh,
second.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that finger on the and of two. So basically, you would do this with one finger anyway, because when you're playing the second string in this case, the
Yeah.
third string is a bass note. So your thumb's coming all the way to the third string. So this whole thing, can really be done with one finger. It's just that and then it plays two different strings in the second measure.
Yeah, it comes back to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So. Oh.
Right,
Oh.
right, right.
Okay. It's right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Um, do you hear all that? Hear all that all goes together?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When Linda played it, she didn't. I had to really listen carefully to the studio recording because it was clearly not her. It was somebody a little more proficient at this. But when she played it, she made the last two notes the same in the second measure as in the first measure, meaning she played the open after the pull off, which happens on beat three, right? Then she still went to the third string as the bass note and the second string to be more consistent with everything else she was doing.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, and actually it's that version that sort of got me started on playing this on doing a lesson on this song. I thought, God, if she can play this, everybody should be tackling it because it's not that it's not that challenging, but it's so cool. And so then when I went back more carefully to listen to the studio version, I noticed that there's different notes there that make more logical sense, sort of. But it's weird that you hit the same string twice in a row. Right after you
Yeah.
pulled off to the D, you hit the D again. And it because there's other stuff going on in the background. I had to wrestle with that for a long time as far as like, what's he really doing there? But what eventually the giveaway is, you can hear the difference between whether the last note is this or this, because it carries over into the next measure. And so that's how I kind of determined that that's the way her guitar player in the studio played it rather than how she did it. So anyway,
Okay.
so basically it doesn't matter. You could do whichever you want at the end of that measure. If it's more comfortable to hit the third and second string again,
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Yeah. It seems like in the second measure, of the yeah, it's almost like you want to climb down there and
Right.
go go there again.
Right, right. So I'd really, I guess, then encourage being able to do both. It's like, develop to it to where neither of those should really be a problem. It's just that, just so it's just one more thing to work on. You know,
Right.
and then something similar happens on the D chord. Have you looked at the next line yet?
Uh, let's see that. Okay, that's the intro, and that's the first line to
Oh,
the
right, right. So the
second,
intro is a couple of times of that, and then so the first and second lines are identical.
except for
Oh,
the
right, at the end.
fourth measure of the verse. Yeah, well, it goes. No, it goes.
Yeah, and that should be a hammer on because it's going to be really fast. So you're just going to hammer on
Oh,
from B to C, and that's leading you to the D in the bass at the beginning of the next line. Yeah. And something a little interesting about this D is you actually can't put the whole chord on because of the moving bass that's going to happen here.
yeah.
You don't have enough fingers, and we're never going to play the first string. So when you play this D chord, yeah, you really only need those two notes. But right, that's and in the lesson, if you take a look at the lesson, I talk about the options here. In order to get to the second fret, you either have to finger it like that, which is what Linda did,
Right.
or you have to finger it like normal and then reach over your first finger with your second to get that E in the bass. So you can mess with both of those and see what's more comfortable. I think that one makes the next note harder. In other words, if you've got your second finger there, now I think it's harder to get your fourth finger to the next bass note, which is up at the than if you do it the other way. Now see if you finger the D with your second and third fingers,
Here.
yeah,
Yeah.
then your first covers that, and that I think is easier than to get your fourth finger there in that position than it was with your first and second the other way. Or does it seem like they're the same to you?
Um, seems like I get. Well, let's see. I think this way. Let's see, versus this way. Right now, that's a kind of a toss up.
Okay, yeah. So
I should try those both.
and what another kind of determining factor is when you've got your fourth finger on the F sharp up here,
Yeah.
you got to make sure that it's not killing. You have to have the third string still clean too, and so it really does require good,
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for? Precise finger placement.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, now that we talk about that, yes. See, I have a hard time getting this one vertical anyway. So,
Oh yeah, here's
yeah.
something else
Yeah.
about okay, because if you're reaching over your first with
Yeah.
your first finger has to be back a little bit, like that's how I would normally play an A chord with my second finger over my first, right?
Right.
But then your first finger can't be all the way up to the fret. It's going to be a little further away from the fret, right? So right there, we're compromising that note a little bit, and then
Yep.
when you reach your fourth finger over it, we have like another ding, sort of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Actually, when I in this position, when I reach my fourth over,
Hmm.
it wants to pull this one over the top of the fret. Actually.
Yeah, yeah, and actually that note, you know what? Your second finger doesn't have to stay on when you reach to your fourth. So in other words, you could,
Like me here.
yeah,
Oh,
but you are going to have to put it back on afterwards. You're going to play that note again, but there's not a good reason to hang on to it if that like compounds the problem.
got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
What is important about all of those notes, and I mentioned this on our G chord, when you're the moving bass part, each of those moving notes has to ring till the next moving one. Like you can't let go. You can't do this. You know, like so you need to hear that line be very very smooth, right? And
Right.
the same thing then has to happen on the D. If I were to just play the bass notes, I'd have to hear this, and that's one's still ringing, then this one, so that you hear this with no gaps between those notes.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So
So it'll be the question here will be convincing myself to go to a D chord like that.
yeah, I had to
So
practice it too. You know, so just it'll only take it'll just take a few 20 reps maybe. You know.
okay. Okay. But ring through those. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
do you hear the last measure of G? This is kind of tricky and sort of subtle. That getting from that pull off to the quick hammer on and landing on the D chord, but you got to make sure. Well, so I'll play that one. So the last G right would be this, do that slower again, right? So you have the first pull off on the fourth string, then the hammer on the fifth string, and all four of those notes lead you right to that open D, and then you worry about putting down the D chord. It's like you don't hold off on hitting that D till you get the other notes down.
okay. Yeah. You gotta. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um. Okay. So.
That's where the finger comes in. You better do it a little bit slower.
I'm supposed to be like, oh no no no. I was okay. I'm not fingering anything down there. I'm I'm hitting
Right,
that
right,
note.
right, right. We just
Yeah
need
yeah
that 1/8 note in there.
yeah. Yeah, I'm hitting that. Okay yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, right after that pull off, you got to do the same kind of a thumb and a quick finger on the
Yeah.
same string that you just did the pull off on, right?
Right. Okay. Let me just go through that one more time. Okay.
Oh, except don't put the finger back on.
Yeah. No. I.
Yeah, hey, but your right hand did exactly the right thing. All you had to do was get your left hand out of the way.
Yeah. Get it. Okay. I'll think about getting that out of the way.
Yeah. 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 Except, in the music, the last finger again is the third string, not the second string. The last finger in the second measure. Right. Yeah. Now, but again, something I said like a few minutes ago is that's actually not too important. You could, in other words, that as long as you have something in there, it's okay. And she does play the second string.
Right.
So actually, that kind of leads me to in the second part where we just got some other chords, the E minors and the Gs and the A and a D, right? Oh, and then a little walk down with stuff. Um, in the lesson, I talk about the picking in there could really just be anything. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do exactly what I put in there. But what I did put in there on the measure, on the whole line of E minor, I just put in a very common picking pattern that has no pinches in it. Just you're alternating the bass notes and throwing in two fingers on all the eighth note spots, right?
Yeah.
So what I really tried to do there was just show some examples of what you could do, but you could really do you could put fingers any place you want. This is kind of the real goal of finger picking songs is to make them up different every time. It's like just be able to keep, but you like to not worry about playing patterns, but the way you get to that is you learn some patterns, but then you can mix and match them. You don't have to. So two of the most common patterns are one that I think I put that one there where there just is no pinches. All you're doing is this. Thumb finger, just
Right.
and except I think there's a passing bass note. I think it walks up to the G at the end of the line. Is there an F sharp in the bass at the end of that line? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's the one little thing. And then on the G chord, I probably have a couple of other patterns. Like I probably don't have the exact same thing.
Yeah. That carries over. So yeah, it's
Oh, right.
then
Yeah. Okay, so that pattern in the second measure, or maybe it's the third measure. Wait.
yeah. And the second measure's a pinch.
Right. Okay. So that the pattern in that second measure is what I would call the most important finger picking pattern. The one that starts with a pinch on one
Right.
and then notes on the and of two and the and of three.
Yes.
And maybe even the and of four. Sometimes you'll put one in on the and of four.
This carries over or
Yeah.
this stays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Four.
So
Okay.
so as you look at that, and I think in each line, in each measure or each line, because next we have the A chord. The A chord I put in some fancier some more things. Sometimes a finger just before a pinch, and all of this I think is actually stuff I heard on the record. So the A chord has a little bit more variety in it. I think there's even like a pinch on three or on four in one measure.
Four.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, careful. I don't think you had the chord. Oh wait, wait. Oh, that's a weird. We're on an A chord, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. It was looking too much like a D.
Reverse A. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Australian A.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
anyway, so I don't think you're going to have any trouble playing any of those, but some of them might feel like, oh, I've never done quite that thing before, like a finger, an and into a pinch. Sometimes that's kind of a new feeling too. Um,
Right.
and then in the last line, it's just the chords just kind of, it would just be hit a bass note and grab the chord and just let it ring for the other three beats.
Do you, do you
I would use so typically when we're playing a D chord, your thumb's going to play the third string.
right? Oh, like that. More.
Yeah. Hang on just a second.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. And then the same thing on a C chord. Oh, you're looking at the last measure of D. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think there's a little more movement in that. Isn't there an
There's an
open
open
first string at one
D.
point?
There's an open D. Yeah, pinch.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of just a little embellishment, sort of to dress up that D, which would then go back to the other section of the song, the G stuff.
Right. Would you
Yeah,
play through that?
yeah. Let me grab the music here. Um, there we go. Okay. Oh, wrong thing. That's the chart. Where is the tab? Oh, that's not the right one. Ah, good. There we go. Okay. Um, Actually, let me look through from the top first, see if there's anything else that. Okay. Okay, yeah. So everything in the verse is. I think we've kind of covered everything there. The E minor. Um, Let me play the line of G first, just so you can hear exactly. Let me play through the whole chorus just real quickly, and then we'll get to that ending. So again, on the E minor, we just got this. That's just rolling. Okay, so those two measures of G are identical. The first two and the last and the second two.
Yeah.
And then the A has some. I'll do the A line a little slower. See, so that's a kind of busier combination of things, right? In the first measure, it just starts with notes on the ands, on three of the ands, leading into a pinch, and then a normal couple of ands, but then that pinch on four, right? And the second two measures are just, kind of random alternating. Okay, and then when we get into the last line, an important thing here is, you're going to hit each bass note with your thumb, but then your thumb is also going to play one of the notes in the big grab. Okay, so on that D chord, I'm going to hit a bass here, and then it's going to be my thumb and these two fingers for the pinch, for the grab on the D. And then they of course have to ring for 3 beats. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're back in. So that D, it's almost like a little drum roll heading into it, We hear that melody kind of climbing up from the D to the E to the F sharp.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I have another. There's another song that is almost like this, and oddly enough, one of my students was working on it when I was working on this, and I got them crossed up in my head. It's. Recognize that yet? Everybody's gone away. Said they're moving to LA. Not a dime But see, here's the similarity in the little moving melody, the same notes in a different direction. That's Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Good. Who did that?
Danny O'Keefe was his name, and he's got a good little cult following that of people that know his songs. The song that you would have another song of his you may have heard because Jackson Browne did it on "Running on Empty." Yeah, yeah, it's called "The Road." And it was on "Running on Empty." And see, just that chord progression is so distinct. That's the kind of sound when you hear this go to this. What's happening there is that I'm playing a G chord, and that second bass note, instead of being D, is D sharp. So I've gone to D sharp here with my first finger. Try that once. Just play a G chord, and then put your first finger on D sharp. Yeah. So what chord is that?
Let's see.
What would we
D.
call it?
Okay, in G. Let's see. D in G is the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
D is the fifth, and so D sharp, sharp fifth.
Yeah.
Okay. What should we be thinking about here? A sharp fifth.
So to give you a hint here, it's still a triad. There are still only three notes in this chord. There are
Yeah,
four kinds of triads.
yeah.
The two obvious ones are major and minor.
Major and minor.
What are the other two that go with those that are much more uncommon?
Diminished and augmented.
That's
So
it.
we went up here. So is this augmented?
That's an augmented chord. The definition of an augmented chord is a major chord, sharp the fifth.
Sharp the fifth.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's like if you when you start hearing a few songs that use that, it's really easy to recognize it. And now I finally got the tune in my head. Right, it goes, highways and dance halls, a good song takes you far. Do 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 do. Blues in old motel rooms, girls in daddy's cars. Da 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 da. Uh-oh. Oh, then it's gonna be something like, but when you stop and let 'em know you've got it down, it's just another town along the road. Really spooky song.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really cool. I'm pretty sure we must have a lesson on that. I bet Vanessa did it. So if you want to mess again, that would be under Jackson Browne though. But it's written by the same guy that did Good Time Charlie.
Right.
Danny
Danny
O'Keefe.
O'Keefe. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things to work on here.
Yeah, we covered a lot of a lot of things from Pink Floyd to Danny O'Keefe and Linda Ronstadt. So
Okay, Pink Floyd, that's my do it from my memory. Pink Floyd.
yeah, and again, I played it back at the beginning of this video of this tape, so you can or this video, so you can hear it, relive it a few times.
The road is is finger picked though, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a steady alternating bass, and it's actually just the same type of thing, keeping those two notes going back and forth. And on the fourth bass note, you hammer on the D sharp. So, and then the fingers are just kind of bouncing back and forth on the second strings, second and third strings. He never gets to the high strings. So something like this. And so you hammer on the D sharp at the end of the first measure and then pull it back off at the end of the second measure.
Okay.
Wait, so do it on the fourth beat. Play 4 bass notes, and then do the hammer on the fourth.
Oh God.
Yeah, and then just keep going. Oh, leave it on. Leave it on for the whole next measure. And then pull it off. Pull it off at the end of the second measure. That's it. That's it. Yeah. So that's kind of like the hook in the song, is hearing that hammer on to the augmented and then the pull off back to major. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. I'll look at that. Perfect. Fun.
Okay. That should tide you over till Thanksgiving probably now, but let's plan on next week anyway, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's where
Today's
are we?
what, the 19th? Yeah, we got one more. No, today's the 12th. Yeah.
Yeah, 12th. So the 19th. I think I have 19th on
Yeah.
schedule. So we'll do it.
Okay. Sounds
Fun.
good. I'll send you this link in a bit, and plan on seeing you next week.
Great, great.